What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's weekend roundup. You know, usually when Manchester United gets humiliated by Brentford, that's what I'm leading with. But what happened at Stamford Bridge was so incredible, so dramatic, so controversial, so entertaining. That's where we're going to go first. We'll get to Manchester United later. But this was set up really well from, even before the game started, just where these two teams are at, the expectations coming into this season, Tottenham's historic struggles against Chelsea. You had some elements to make this dramatic coming in. But then you got the perfect combination of drama, controversy, conflict, all of it to create this incredible series of emotions and drama and entertainment that is very hard to get in match week 2. But somehow, some way, these two teams found to do it with the help of Anthony Taylor, and we've got a real strong candidate for match of the season, and it's August 14th. Chelsea start off well, go ahead through Kalidou Koulibaly, excellent volley off of the corner kick that is easily going to get lost because of everything that happened after it. Really good goal. Always been a huge fan of his. Always said he never got the credit he deserved because he was playing for Napoli and Serie A. Now he gets his chance in the Premier League. What a way to introduce yourself to the Chelsea fans in your first game at home. And Chelsea did a terrific job pinning Tottenham in. They were brilliant in the first half. Spurs, you didn't see anything on the counter. They couldn't get the ball out of their own half. Chelsea dominated and did everything they wanted to. But Spurs were able to hang in there at 1-0. And that's where the drama starts. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg's equalizer and the series of events leading up to it, as well as those following it. Two of Thomas Tuchel's big complaints after this game were the things that happened in the build-up to this goal. First, the missed foul on Kai Havertz. Yes, it was a blatant missed call. That's a foul. It was also, 70 yards from where the ball ended up. And with Richarlison being offside and in the line of Edouard Mendy's sight, that one's just not getting called. We've seen that precedent be set. And Havertz's was just too far in the past. Too far down the field. So Tuchel can be upset about him if he wants. Here's my bigger thing and my frustration with Tuchel on those 2 points in particular. He's going to go to bat for his team. You saw in this game, he clearly has no problem wearing his emotions on his sleeves and letting people know what he thinks. But the single biggest reason that goal happened was Jorginho was careless and made poor decisions inside the box with the ball. He took too long, he got too fancy, instead of just clearing it and moving on to the next play. I will always hold people accountable and refuse to buy into their complaints when something like this comes as a result of a mistake your players made, something that is fixable without going to blame it on extenuating circumstances like refereeing decisions. This goal was not about Anthony Taylor. It was not about a missed call. It was about Jorginho making bad decisions in his box. So of course, Tuchel's going to say those things and complain. They just don't have any merit for me. I'm not buying them. A, because I just don't think they're accurate. I would love to hear Tuchel's response if those calls had gone in his team's, if those calls had gone the other way and his team was on the receiving end, if that makes sense. If Tottenham had gotten that foul call, whatever it might be. Because I think you would hear a lot of complaining from him if all of a sudden Tottenham got a goal based off of something that happened 75 yards down the field. Or what? You get my point. He's going to go to bat for his team. Doesn't mean I have to buy into it. The aftermath. Havertz goes flying at the assistant referee. Conte is celebrating the goal. The next thing you know, he's flying at Tuchel. Tuchel's flying at him. They're face to face. They're about to come to blows. Eventually, it calms down a little bit. They both get yellow cards. Bizarre. You don't see it very often. Don't have too much else to say on it. They're both trying to downplay it, and that's kind of where I am too. Is these are two incredibly emotional guys in the middle of an incredibly emotional atmosphere. Stuff happens. If you're going to pick two managers to get involved in something like that, it's probably these two guys. Incredible scenes. You're going to get memes and stuff like that out of that forever. So finally, we get this thing back in order. They get yellow cards. Reece James then puts Chelsea back ahead. Tottenham had a better spell once Conte changed the formation, got Richarlison onto the field. They were much better, but Chelsea do find a way through. Reece James has a good third of the field to work with and is able to finish, which then leads to Tuchel running down the touchline, which I'm sure only infuriated Conte more. Again, this is just continuing to build. Nobody is trying to de-escalate anything here. It's just building the conflict, the drama, the controversy, all of it. So now we get to the very end of the game. And what happened in the box between Christian Romero and Marc Cucurella on the corner before the one Harry Kane scored on. That is absolutely a foul, and it should have been a free kick. I'm not going as far as that is violent conduct and a straight red. And that is where this gets really difficult, because it didn't result in a goal. And you have to say that is clearly and obviously a mistake and a red card for VAR to intervene at all. That is the only option VAR has. And so this is where you feel, at least I feel for VAR, because to me, the right decision was made based on the things you can review and how this process works. How Anthony Taylor missed that is another question that needs to be answered and he needs to be held accountable for. The other point I want to make here is one of my big pet peeves about this sport, and it's just the way I'm wired. These are the kind of things that happen when you allow all kinds of nonsense to go on in the box and nobody ever gets punished for it. VAR couldn't have done anything about this one, but there are certainly other times where you see all kinds of fouls being committed inside the box on things that lead to goals or things that could be penalties that aren't given by VAR because, oh, it's in the box and you don't want to start calling penalties on everything and blah, blah, blah. Yes, there's a slippery slope. I acknowledge that. But also, how about we just call blatant fouls in the box? All this does, and all letting guys get away with diving does, all that waiting, this whole thing of if a player, if you got to go down to get the call, all this stuff does is reinforce behavior you don't want. It rewards guys for diving. It rewards guys for going to the ground, period, instead of trying to stay up. And it rewards players, I should say, for doing things like what Christian Romero did. Because more times than not, they get away with it, and the consequences just aren't that severe. So yeah, it should have been a free kick. I'm not willing to go as far as a red. But if we had a stricter standard set about behavior inside the box, maybe that doesn't happen. So Tuchel is 100% justified in being furious that was missed. And some people are saying it's a red. It's a valid opinion. Like I said, though, it's just not one I agree with. So this is just one of those things that happens sometimes. Chelsea were unfortunate in this situation. That's where I come down on this part of it. So Harry Kane delivers on the next corner. It's 2-2. That's how it finishes. In terms of bigger takeaways, I want to get to a couple things quickly here, and then we're going to get to everything else. Despite the unfortunate series of events that went against Chelsea, because there is no getting away, there were some poor refereeing decisions, most of which benefited Tottenham in this game. Chelsea still would have won had Jorginho been smarter in his box, had they been better defending that final corner kick, and perhaps most importantly, had the players being paid all this money to score goals actually finished their chances, specifically Kai Havertz, and Raheem Sterling had one too. But that Havertz miss was glaring. When I look at these two teams, that is still the difference. It's why I still am going to put Spurs ahead of Chelsea, why I still firmly believe Spurs are the third best team in the league, are going to finish third, and are the only team capable of sticking, potentially, with Manchester City and Liverpool. Who is the Chelsea player that doesn't play, a midfield role like Mason Mount, or a defensive role like Reece James, in this instance Kalidou Koulibaly, who is actually going to finish at a high level? This is the thing I talked about when Raheem Sterling came in, because it's not Sterling, it's not Havertz, it wasn't Timo Werner. You are still in the same position, in part because, they sent all of their strikers into exile / sold Timo Werner back to Leipzig. They can create all the chances they want. Ultimately, they still needed Reece James to score and Kalidou Koulibaly to score perhaps the best goal of his career to get on the score sheet when Kai Havertz missed the brilliant opportunity he had. It is a glaring weakness in this team that has not been addressed. Maybe it will be by the end of the transfer window. We'll see. But Tottenham don't have to worry about that. Tottenham created 3-4 quality chances in this game. They were horrible in the first half. Which gets to my second point, which is Antonio Conte's got to let these guys play. They clearly came in to try and absorb pressure and hit Chelsea on the counter. Except Chelsea were so good, they didn't get the chance. Once things changed in the second half, and part of this was obviously they needed to come back not once but twice, but they were much better. This team is incredibly talented. They've got to be able to play. But at the end of this, they still found a way to go into Stamford Bridge and get a point. They won the moral victory because you take the point on the road against the fellow Big Six team every day of the week, especially when you didn't deserve it. The mental standpoint and the actual finishing, right? It took them 3-4 chances. You get a moment of brilliance from Højbjerg. Harry Kane misses his one really good opportunity, but he makes up for it with the header, the really good header in the final seconds to steal the point. That's the difference between these two teams for me. Until Chelsea has somebody who is an attacker who can consistently put the ball in the net and capitalize on the opportunities, I'm taking Tottenham 10 times out of 10. On to Manchester United. My goodness, I couldn't believe what I was watching. That was horrifying. I don't have too much to say because I said so much last week and it's the same things, but I have a little bit more I want to elaborate on and one specific point I want to make from this game. First, Brentford were really, really, really good. I had them going down. So far, what I've seen is making me rethink that a little bit. I would probably not have them going down if I had to reassess that right now. Still not sold they're going to be safe. Because they did absolutely nothing in the first half against Leicester. Then they got, Josh Da Silva came on. They got 2 goals late, stole a point. It's not like they were brilliant the first game and came into this game with all the confidence in the world. But they were excellent in this one. And particularly, what was it, the third goal? That was a thing of beauty. So, want to give Brentford their props. I was very skeptical. They are proving me wrong so far. It also says something that this happened to Manchester United against a team that many people, including me, expected to be relegated this season. Now, maybe we were just all wrong and Brentford finished 14th or something. I'm not willing to go that far yet, though. And this is the team that just demolished United. You can go down the list of all the stats and the impact Cristiano Ronaldo has had on this team and the fact that they're averaging something like 0.5 fewer points per game since he arrived as the highest paid player in the Premier League than they did in that stretch between his arrival and their last Premier League title when it hasn't exactly been great. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but they're significantly worse since he has arrived than they were in that stretch between last season and their last Premier League title. But the other player I want to highlight here is David De Gea. Obviously, he was at fault for the first goal. You just can't let that in. And he was 100% at fault for the second one. Why he was putting that ball at Christian Eriksen's feet in that situation, in that spot of the field, is beyond me. And it was clearly behind Erik Ten Hag, too, given his reaction. De Gea is a world-class shot stopper, perhaps the best in the world. But for most of his Manchester United career, he has had a mistake in him. They take various forms, but he had two of them in this game. And yes, a lot of this is about his inability to play out of the back. How does he fit with what Erik Ten Hag wants to do? Very valid question. But the other part of this is, again, among the highest paid players, not goalkeepers, players in the Premier League. Remember when we were having a real conversation about whether Dean Henderson or David De Gea should be starting for Manchester United? That didn't just disappear. He is brilliant at times and head-scratching at others. And this is something I've really come to appreciate about guys like Edouard Mendy, Thibaut Courtois, Jan Oblak, Manuel Neuer to an extent, though in his defense, his style of play lends itself to some mistakes. I mean, he made one in Bayern's opener. But generally, Ederson and Alisson fall into this category too. Though, again, they give you something completely different because of their ability to play with their feet. I put an immense amount of value on knowing my goalkeeper doesn't make horrible game-changing mistakes. It's one of the reasons I'm pro Matt Turner in goal for the U.S. men's national team. Zach Steffen has already made a glaring mistake at Middlesbrough. There are certain keepers that maybe they are not the absolute best in terms of shot stopping or the absolute best in terms of distributing the ball with their feet. But none of that is as important to me as knowing things like those two goals that David De Gea was responsible for aren't going to happen. And David De Gea doesn't provide you that. He is going to make these mistakes from time to time. This isn't the first time. I'm willing to bet it won't be the last. On the overall Manchester United situation, I gave my spiel about Erik Ten Hag and the fact that this is a completely different responsibility than what he had at Ajax. He has to prove he can actually change the fundamental mental makeup of this team, this club. Somebody has to come in there with the force of will to just make things different. Don't need to make it more complex than that, right? You have a completely different vibe the minute Jurgen Klopp walks into Liverpool. What Antonio Conte did at Inter and is now doing at Spurs, which is why I thought Manchester United should have hired him. There are a select set of managers who are able to just instantly change the vibe, the culture, the feel. I'm not convinced Erik Ten Hag is one of those. I wasn't convinced he was one of those guys before. And certainly I'm not convinced at this moment. But again, it's 2 games in. You got to give this guy some time. So I gave the Ten Hag spiel. We can go on and on about all of this stuff. But the scariest part about this, if you're a Manchester United fan, is that there is nothing to point to here as a reason to believe this is going to get better anytime soon. The players themselves are not good enough and have to take responsibility for how horrendous that was. Erik Ten Hag is not telling David De Gea to make that pass to Christian Eriksen. This is not just about the coach. Players have got to own their part of this too. Recruitment has been a mess this summer. Ten Hag's quote-unquote guys he's brought in from the Eredivisie haven't exactly clicked. Obviously, Frankie de Jong is still not a Manchester United player. And there's the track record going from Paul Pogba on back to guys who it just didn't work. They missed targets, whatever it might be. That part of this has got to get fixed. Again, no reason to believe that's going to change. I just talked about Erik Ten Hag may or may not be up for this challenge. He may or may not have the right kind of personality to gut this thing and completely redefine it. Jury's still out on that. And then finally, the lack of accountability from the Glazer family. That is absolutely part of this too. It is not the only thing. But where are they? They have made a point of saying as little as possible and being as invisible as possible. Somebody's got to answer for this, and that starts with the ownership. So all of those things I just listed, where is the thing you can point to and say, I think this could get better because? I don't see it. And you got to give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer some credit here based on how things have gone since he left. Because at least for a moment, I started to think that maybe, just maybe, he was onto something. Now, it turned out he wasn't. But this is a new low point. It's getting worse. Not anywhere close to better. Oh, and by the way, check their upcoming schedule. Good luck getting points in the next couple months. They've got a whole slew of difficult games, including the other Big Five teams, starting with Liverpool here. And so I want to take a moment to contrast this, or at least talk about what positive change looks like and actually having something to believe in that things can get better. And that is Arsenal. Of course, the results have improved. But I want to specifically highlight something Josh Kroenke said on the All or Nothing. I believe it was the first episode. I don't remember off the top of my head. But he essentially said, yeah, we've made some mistakes. We have messed up. We're trying to learn from it. And we need to do things better. And the more we have time, we're going to learn, grow, and improve. And so what have you seen over the past year, right? We went from everybody wanting Arteta out to everybody being behind this team. You've seen the investment in the transfer window and their ability with a top-down cohesion from the Kroenkes to Edu to Mikel Arteta to get players in they want and to significantly improve their team. That is a really, really good squad they have now. And there was a clear plan in terms of what they were trying to do with these guys they were targeting. They were going for youth to kind of complement and build out this core and to freshen things up. There was a very clear pattern. There was a plan. And now all of a sudden, in the span of 12 months or so, Arsenal have gone from everybody wanting this, and also never wavered in the confidence in Mikel Arteta. That's the other part of this too. The fans did, but I'm not getting the impression watching these first couple episodes of All or Nothing Josh Kroenke ever did. Actually letting your inexperienced manager take his lumps and learn and grow. Since the Super League debacle, I feel like Maybe Arsenal fans disagree with me, but I feel like there's been an actual change and an effort made to do things differently at Arsenal, which is how you get to the point they are now, where that fan base is as excited as they've been in a long time, and for good reason. That is what Manchester United needs to be looking at and trying to mimic. Start step by step. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen quickly. But start putting things in place to give some people something to believe in, because right now they've got nothing. Real quick before we get out of here, appreciate you sticking around this long. Barcelona can't score a goal against Rayo Vallecano. Was not a good performance. Deserves splitting of the points. This is just an opportunity to point out that when you have the summer Barcelona has, and everybody is confused how you're able to spend all this money, and you barely get your players registered before the first game, and still don't have all of them registered, and are basically justifying all of this by saying this group of players is going to get us back to the top of Europe and bring in the money we need to get out of this disastrous financial situation. You're already Barcelona. And when you do that, all it does is put even more of a spotlight on you, more pressure on you to deliver those results that you say are going to save your financial situation. Obviously, that's not a good way to start that era. By sort of pushing everything into the future and not dealing with anything that is not, immediately pressing, i.e. getting players registered, all of this is just compiling. And the longer we go, at some point, this has to start working, or Barcelona is going to be even in a... This is a very bad situation. Like I said at some point before, imagine what happens if this doesn't work. It has to start. It's one game. No need to freak out. But at some point, it has to start working. Also, Real Madrid got a real test from Almeria. Almeria goes up early. Lucas Vazquez gets an equalizer midway through the second half. Then David Alaba comes onto the field, his first touch to score a beautiful free kick goal. Real Madrid hang on for the 2-1 win as they begin their title defense. But neither of these teams were particularly inspiring week one. And it's not like they were playing, Sevilla, Atletico Madrid, Valencia, Villarreal. It's Rayo Vallecano and Almeria. So something to keep an eye on at least. Not a great start for either Barcelona or Real Madrid, but Real Madrid do manage to get the 3 points while Barcelona have to settle for a draw. That's all we've got. I know that was a lot. Thanks for sticking around, like I said earlier. We will see you next time.